Next year, analysts are building up 15 to 18%, and some of it is because of the factor of that crude oil prices, commodity prices, which can move up in line with the economic growth. So that buffer is there, but my view is that the earning cycle will only surprise us on the positive side, because the kind of demand that we are going to see will pull the business growth, the revenues much higher, and that will drive earnings.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put you all on spot to now do a little bit of crystal ball gazing. You can decide to say positive, negative. You can decide to choose a range. I'm not going to discuss. So I'm going to start with Kishore. Global interest rates, or specifically US interest rate. What do you think will happen in next calendar year 2024? And if you can give us a range.
See, I can give 2025, we should be somewhere around 3.5%.
25.
Yeah. So 24 is tricky, because I personally am still not seeing consumer spending going down. Unless consumers stop spending, you cannot tame down inflation. As simple as that, right? So Fed will not be in a hurry, because they see any central bank, they don't want to zigzag this thing. So once they are absolutely sure, then they will start cutting the rates, or they have to see pain. The pain is not there. We are not losing jobs. There is no massive layoffs. Unemployment rate is not going up. So either unemployment rate has to shoot up, or consumers have to stop spending. Either way.
So you don't see demand.
That
side or
evidence
supply
is not
side
there.
or even both.
The dot plot, the chart which we use to predict interest rates, is showing three rate cuts in 2024. But personally, I am seeing not more than two.
Same question. India interest rate?
India interest rates probably, see, we are not the ones to raise much faster, and we are not seeing that kind of inflationary pressure. And as an emerging market, we can tolerate a 5% plus inflation rate. But our inflation has been much lower than that overall. So we don't have pressure to reduce the interest rates, because we have not gone up significantly also compared to even historically what we have done. So my take will be that 2024 we might see one, if not two, that's 50 bips by end of 2024.
Jayesh, if everyone here is talking about a strong economic growth, there will not be a sense of urgency from the central banks to cut rates.
Cut the rates.
So
That's right.
It's a very contradictory question.
No, in India,
when we are bullish,
when
we are extremely positive economically and environmentally, the overall global financial environment is going to be so buoyant, then there is no point of rate cuts.
See,
unless you see pressure.
Had that
What
US
pressure,
recession
if the pressure
happened,
comes, it
rate
will be
cuts
shown
would
in the
have
markets.
happened much faster.
Yeah, it will be shown.
So just for the audience, I think on US and India interest rate, we are saying interest rates have peaked. This is the time to look at softer interest rate. And as a wealth manager, advice is go long on bonds. And I'm coming to Navneet.
I think this is the time for duration rather than
the time for duration. Go long.
Yeah.
Buy long-term bonds. Coming to you, Navneet, your view on precious metal?
Well, we've been overtly bullish on gold and silver for some time now, and as he mentioned that maybe a 20-25% upside could be on store, but for largely 2024 it's going to be a year of volatility. Why I say that? There are many elections around the world which are going to be impactful, and maybe we've seen decent amount of volatility and geopolitical stress in the last 1-2 years. So next year is going to be a little cool off period because of the election phenomena. So I think maybe 7-8% kind of returns, or on the domestic front maybe 66,000 on the best side. On the international front maybe 2,200 on the higher side. That's where we see gold prices too.
If you can tolerate volatility, silver is going to be better.
But
you have to be ready for some volatility.
I would like to add to that we just been talking about adding gold to your portfolio, but if you can tolerate that volatility, as you mentioned, silver is a better bet than gold at this point in time, which can give you maybe 20% kind of returns from you.
Yeah, silver
we have silver ETFs. We have silver ETFs which are actively traded, which have reasonable volatility and volumes in them. So one can look at that from an investment perspective, and I think they are pretty much in line with what the physical market is moving. So that's one of the good avenues.
And your view, since we spoke about China and the worry against commodity, because that has to look closely from equity market perspective. Before I go to both of them, your view on commodities?
Well, commodities largely we've been positive on copper, say maybe for the last couple of quarters, but we've not seen the kind of run up we would have wished to. So I think once the hockey stick we're talking about starts to kick in, that is going to be very, very positive for copper. I wouldn't be surprised if we are very close to lifetime highs of about 10,700 odd dollars over the next. That's a 20-25% upside from current levels. On the domestic front also, we've been positive, and 900 odd per kg is where we see copper prices heading towards.
So my friend Navneet here, I think, is bullish on everything. Gold, some more interesting time. And to tell about Kishore, I think the confusion will continue. Equity will do well, interest rate will come down, but he thinks the gold price will still go up. And for the viewers, he feels that investing into silver, if you can stand volatility, will be a far better option than gold per se. And he feels that commodity price will also go up, which can create some pressure. That leads me to our equity experts. I think I'll go with Siddharth first. Your view on equity market in 2024, and maybe you want to take a call on a index. Choice is yours.
So we are definitely positive on equity markets, as we already discussed. Earnings growth, upward revision cycle is what is currently happening. While the current estimates for this year, as I already discussed, is on the lower side with a expectation of 23% growth in earnings for this year. Next year, analysts are building up 15 to 18%, and some of it is because of the factor of that crude oil prices, commodity prices, which can move up in line with the economic growth. So that buffer is there, but my view is that the earnings cycle will only surprise us on the positive side, because the kind of demand that we are going to see will pull the business growth, the revenues much higher, and that will drive earnings. So in terms of index, we are expecting at least a 12 to 15% upside even from current levels. Valuations are comfortable at 18.5 FY25, and if we are growing at 18 to 20% growth, we can easily sustain these levels. So the 18 to 20% growth could give you another 15% upside. On Nifty at current levels, we can see new highs of 24,500 levels for 2024. So that's the prediction. In terms of sectors, you look at the biggest gains could come from financials. We are talking about interest rates kind of cooling off, stabilizing, which will give you the leg up in terms of NIMs. Core industrial growth, economic growth will give you the credit growth, and this sector has kind of done some time correction. So valuations are comfortable. So I see strong growth from the banking and financials, plus valuations being comfortable. That's the biggest sector in India. And if FI's money is coming in the way we are expecting, the biggest sector to benefit would be the banking sector.
But can I ask you, in an interest rate down cycle, normally banks they make money in an up cycle rather than in down cycle, right?
So the demand will go up. The credit
demand for money
offtake
goes
will
up.
go
Rate
up.
of spread increase. That increase in
But that
business.
would see. Again, I'm not an expert on equities, but still, in a downward cycle, typically the margins shrink. The net and NIMs normally
like
shrink.
what has happened to all the markets, this time also the things have been different. In a rising interest rate market, NIMs have actually kind of contracted for banks in the last 2-3 quarters, because they have unable to pass on the price hikes because of the environment, the way it was.
Credit offtake is
The
not
credit
that
offtake.
much.
So they wanted to manage
Now the demand should increase for the credit, and that should
yeah.
actually add
So the kind of industrial, so that brings me to the next sector, which is the core industrial sector, where capacity utilizations are nearing full. Government capex has been on very high, but now the private capex cycle is picking up. Sector after sector, we are seeing a lot of interest in increasing capacities, and that will lead to the credit offtake, which is the first sector, but also for the industrials, the likes of capital goods, also including the government capex themes like infrastructure, roads, construction, railways, defense. So the core industrials is the another sector which we believe will do well in 2024. That brings me to the third sector, which is the consumption, which is the evergreen sector for India. Continues to do well, and in economic growth environment, it will do well. And finally, some of the niche high growth sectors, for example, the electronic manufacturing, that's a new theme that has emerged in the market. The microfinance, another small segment in the market that will do well. Travel and hospitality, that is one space that has consistently done well. So the hotels, the travel companies, they have been gaining a lot, and I think that some of these
That's already
themes-
reflecting
I
in
think
current
globally,
numbers,
hospitality and leisure did very well.
I was saying 2 years of COVID, and I think we all thought that it's just continuity of that. But this year we already surpassed 15 crore of Indian flyers. Airports are making new high every day with 4 lakh, 4.5 lakh.
They have
people
become bus
flying in.
stands.
So that takes me to
But
you.
one
You
more,
come
one more
across.
I just before going to Chandan actually, if I to ask you one sector which is an underdog, like this financial has been top for quite some time. So most of the portfolios में allocations में financial
There,
सबसे top
yeah.
रहेगा, infrastructure तो रहेगा ही, and then consumption तो
Consumption
रहेगा
से
ही रहेगा.
रहेगा
So
ही.
this is most common. So what is the sector which you can say that कि यार वो bottom से underdog जो sector क्या
Just to
है?
add
एक
to
sector.
there, what he's saying is we have to look at in context of their weightage in index.
Yeah,
What he's saying
right.
is
Which is
already a
not-
financial services is 30%.
Yes.
So anyway, everybody's portfolio will have either 25 or 35.
So I think IT, Indian tech companies, they have been an underdog for some time now. And
Including the recent run-up.
so
You're
the
factoring that
recent
in?
run-up is only the outperformance that
Starting,
they
is it?
started. But if you look at, they're still not part of a lot of portfolios. They're still underweight on IT because there is 1 or 2 more quarters of underperformance that they are going to report. But if the way US economy is going to rise and the way if interest rates get started cutting by the mid of next year, I think IT can be an underdog which could do well. A, valuations are much lower. B, the companies are cash rich, they are well managed, and they are generally the darlings of FIs.
So do you think this will be a contra call?
It could
To
be a
answer
contra call,
Kishore's,
yes.
Kishore's question. This can be a contra call to make money. It
Yeah,
works well.
that's where the interest is, na?
That's where the interest is. I'm coming to you, Chandan. I think you've been perpetual bull. You don't want other asset class to do well. You don't want other countries to do well. सबका साथ सबका विकास आप भूल गए हो. But what's your take? Since we all heard you being bullish on India, bullish on market, but as Siddharth said, the earnings growth coming in, a lot of these sectors have already, we are seeing movement happening. A lot of us feel that it's start of FII money coming in, but you are strong on saying that DII will continue to do, and it's already reflecting in the number, whether it's SIP number or a number of DMAT shares increasing. So what's your take? What's in store for 2024?
सो आपने पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट बोला सबका साथ सबका विकास. लास्ट बजट था दैट वाज फोकस ऑन बिल्डिंग इंडिया,
Correct.
जबकि गवर्नमेंट कहीं और फोकस कर सकती थी.
Correct.
एंड नाउ इफ पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी इज देयर इन सिस्टम, आई थिंक अगेन फोकस विल बी बिल्डिंग इंडिया. और जब इंडिया पे बिल्डिंग है तो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर.
Correct.
हम बार बार सीपीएस से बात कर रहे हैं, पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस. पब्लिक सेक्टर को भी डिफरेंट क्लासिफिकेशन दे सकते हैं. Look at the railway. Only talk about Vande Bharat. You will be visible to talk about Indian railway system. When you talk about CPSC, look at your defense, Make in India, Skill India. Look at the selective defense name. You will be clear about how certain stocks and companies do well. When you talk about banking system, because without banking you can't do anything. Everyone talking about NPA are going down and all. Interest rate are not decreasing, but real estate are doing well. So what does it indicate? Somehow something is there in PSU banks.
Right.
So talk about infrastructure, talk about the railway, talk about the PSUs, talk about the defense companies. Okay, now if you only talk about the India consumption, I think EV, I don't know how much scenario will change, but somehow it has started to reflect on the roads. And government has own target about building roads. So there will be development EV, but auto will be darling. And we have seen consistent performer in selective auto stocks in 2023. And I think the delivery will continue. Few auto might be on 4th gear and few might be in top gear. Consumption you cannot rule out. And COVID ने ये सिखाया कि जीना सीखो. तो hotel, Siddharth already discussed about that. Consumption will be in focus. And what I understand, and I'll take one sentence, कि हमें देश के लिए मरने का मौका नहीं मिला, जीने का मौका मिला है. एंड आई थिंक ये बात हर भारतीय में है. एंड आई थिंक दैट इज द रीजन ऑफ द रियल ग्रोथ ऑफ द इंडियन इकोनॉमी. सो 24 में 24,000. दिस इज द ओनली क्वेश्चन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट.
24 में 24,000. I think that's a good conversation. I'm going to go more deeper with you. Currently, if you look at the rally in mid and small cap, and as I said, a lot of our active fund managers, the indices itself, and to remind viewers, this indices also has loss-making units, right? Despite of that, indices has beaten active fund managers. And if you look at this time, this is the first time where we are seeing unprecedented premium over large caps from a current market scenario. And you look at the inflows through SIP or through mutual fund inflows, or a lot of new funds which have come in. Indian investors are flocking towards this too. What is your view on specifically small and mid cap and broadly indices perspective? Because I understand your bottom up, you're looking at companies and sectors, but isn't this a worry?
थैंक यू जयेश, वेरी ब्रिलियंट क्वेश्चन. ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, भारत में जब जब डीआईएस का पैसा बड़े फ्लो से आएगा, डोमेस्टिक कंपनी पे ज़्यादा दाम होगा. दैट इज द फैक्ट. बिकॉज हम ऐसा मानते हैं कि हम हमारी कंपनी को ज़्यादा समझते हैं दूसरों की वजह, दूसरों की कंपेयर करें तो. एफ आई इज ऑलवेज लाइक कि वॉलेटिलिटी कम रहे एंड हैवी वेट्स पे फोकस करें. DIs and local money always focus on the small cap and mid cap because they understand कि heavy weights कंपनी इतनी बढ़ चुकी है, अब और कितना, right? And still Indian believe कि we are the young economy, small and mid cap can do well, but understand small cap mid cap में risk रहेगा, sector rotation रहेगा. 2024 we are talking about 24, but election है, volatility रहेगा. We know things are stable, but some sort of volatility could be there. And when you talk about volatility index, as of now your India VIX is near 14. I don't think it will surpass 18, 19 now. Why? Because first thing, this volatility is being calculated on index, and nowadays every day is the expiry day, so somehow volatility is being taken care of. यानी ऐसा हो रहा है कि एक गेयर से दूसरा गेयर चेंज करो तब तक एक्सपायरी आ जाती है, न्यूट्रल आना पड़ रहा है. दैट इज वन मोर रीजन कि बड़ी वॉलेटिलिटी नहीं आएगी. इफ यू लुक एट द CBOE VIX, somehow some sort of stability is there on CBOE VIX. So कहीं ना कहीं across the global volatility थोड़ी सी.
Can you make for the viewer simplify this VIX or what you are saying? Because I think
So when we talk about VIX, ultimately क्या है मार्केट में? Greed and fear. Volatility is some sort of VIX को हम दूसरे तरीके से बोले तो greed and fear. और बाजार पूरा greed and fear का गेम है. If you don't talk about fundamental and valuation other thing.
in a short term.
Right. So कहीं ना कहीं greed and fear indicator indicate कर रहा है कि लोगों को ज़्यादा डर नहीं है. और somehow that is the reason कि कोई भी डिप आते वापस बाइंग आ जाता है. एंड CBOE VIX इज लोअर, लाइक आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट US मार्केट, वहाँ पे लोअर है. एंड उसकी वजह से आप देखोगे रिसेशन सब फियर होने के बावजूद भी मार्केट ज़्यादा नहीं हुआ और हल्का सा थोड़ा सा सेंटिमेंट नेगेटिव खत्म हुए, रिकवरी आ गई. द सेम थिंग इज देयर इन इंडियन मार्केट्स. VIX है पिछले काफ़ी महीनों से 12-13 के आसपास था, अभी 14 हुआ है लगभग. और 14 इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि मार्केट में मोमेंटम बढ़ा है बुल्स की साइड में. सो आई डोंट थिंक इवन वी आर हेडिंग टुवर्ड्स इलेक्शन, यूनियन इलेक्शन 2024, बट आई डोंट थिंक 18 के सरपास और 18 के बियॉन्ड VIX टिकेगा. एंड VIX एंड मार्केट हैज 85-86% नेगेटिव कोरिलेशन. So if I technically and derivatives use this indicator to understand the market sentiment, so I understand lower VIX always indicates that bulls are having dominance. And that is the one fact that why I'm not worried about any major downside. Even if by chance volatility happens, that will turn into the buoyancy or people will go with buy on decline stance. And one more thing, in recent run up, many people are having FOMO. And because of that FOMO, the volatility is not going up. Even volatility will be utilized to churn or aid something. Again, small cap, mid cap में volatility इसलिए भी रहेगी because काफ़ी बढ़ चुके हैं. Always remember, काफ़ी कुछ बढ़ चुका है तो हल्के फुल्के झटके आ सकते हैं. And if people are smart enough to utilize those.
मेरा वरी वहाँ पे बड़ा कंसर्न लिक्विडिटी पे है. एज यू राइटली सेड, इंडियन स्मॉल एंड मिड कैप को ज़्यादा समझते हैं या उनको लगता है वो ज़्यादा समझते हैं, FIIs नहीं पाएंगे तो हम खरीदते हैं. बट ये भी रियलिटी के बहुत कम रिसर्च स्टॉक होते हैं, लिक्विडिटी नहीं होता है, मेजर होल्डिंग प्रोमोटर का होता है. सो जब डाउनटर्न आता है या जब वॉलेटिलिटी आती है तभी इसमें से एग्जिट मिलना या प्राइस पे इम्पैक्ट बहुत बड़ा आता है.
सो व्हाट इज द सॉल्यूशन फॉर दैट? आप पूरा पैसा स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप में मत लगाओ. You need to allocate your money into the different size of the company. For an example, again one has to set some rule कि मुझे 5,000 करोड़ से कम से कंपनी में डालना ही नहीं है पैसा. स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप में रिटर्न बड़ा बनता है बट रिस्क भी बड़ा है. पर्सन हैज टू अंडरस्टैंड. सो एग्जाम्पल के लिए आपके पास X पोर्टफोलियो है तो 20-30% ज़्यादा स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप में जाओ नहीं ताकि आपकी वॉलेटिलिटी हैंडल हो जाए, राइट? एंड देन डाइवर्सिफाई द पोर्टफोलियो. सो वॉलेटिलिटी रहेगी स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप में, बट अगेन कोई चांस से कोई भी स्मॉल करेक्शन आ जाता है, वॉलेटिलिटी आ जाता है, वहाँ पे यदि किसी ने यूटिलाइज किया स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप में तो अच्छा रिटर्न बनेगा. दैट इज व्हाट अल्टीमेटली आई वांट टू कंक्लूड. एंड देन सेक्टर आपको फोकस करना पड़ेगा. यस, वी अंडरस्टैंड कि 2024 में अच्छा मूवमेंट आएगा, बट अगेन लाइक ऑल लास्ट ईयर the real money can be made with the selection of the theme, right? Portfolio election, right theme will add value. Diversify करना पड़ेगा. स्मॉल के मिड के काफ़ी चले हैं तो अब समझना पड़ेगा कि पेस ऑफ बाइंग उतना नहीं रहेगा, बट डिप आया तो वापस पेस ऑफ बाइंग क्रिएट हो जाएगा. दैट इज द इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट आई वांट टू हाईलाइट हियर. सो अपनी पोजीशन को हेज रखना है, ध्यान रखना है. ईजी नहीं है बट ग्रोथ अभी भी है. दिस इज व्हाट
बाहर नहीं रहना है.
यश, एक चीज़ भी है कि हम सब तेजी बोल रहे हैं अपना सेक्टर्स में वगैरह. एक चीज़ हम लोग बोल रहे हैं कि इन्वेस्टर्स को और ट्रेडर्स को एक कि रिस्क क्या होना चाहिए. रिस्क तो हो गए इतना, मतलब एवरीथिंग इज ब्यूटीफुल ब्लॉसमिंग काइंड ऑफ सिनेरियो. फाइनेंशियल मार्केट से एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, तो आई डोंट नो, मैं भी सबसे भी सुनना चाहता हूँ कि अभी अगेन वी आर स्टार्टेड टू सी कोविड फियर्स resurfacing. Maybe it's negligible at this point of time, but you cannot rule out what Singapore is going through right now. Kerala has started. Kerala has started. Is this going to be something big? We don't know.
So let me rephrase. He's given me a good clue. Let me rephrase the other way around. To all this you heard so far, to this story, what are the negatives? Let's start with Navneet. Let's be devil's advocate and say, what are the negatives which can spoil the party?
Well, from a commodities and currencies perspective, I see that election is around the corner, and maybe 48 countries are due to have elections in the next year. Out of that, India is one of the major countries. US has got election, Russia has got election, and there are other small pockets which, Middle East has some kind of election going on. So these are some of the countries which are going to have a critical impact. There are
India, you can discount a little, right? We are in election mode throughout the year, right?
so that could be one outlier, that clear majority, not clear majority, and things are likely to be vulnerable. And as we approach elections, generally we tend to not shift to the fifth gear, but to drive a little slow, little cautious, to
So you are
forecast.
saying India and global election can be a
that
spoil sport
that is one of the factors that
where
could
people
be.
will be more conservative
Absolutely.
and also may not take that call. Chandan,
Yeah. So again, 2024 election, सबसे
so you are also worried about election?
yeah, but again, you know, political stability is there.
Yeah.
So you
then why
understand how
worried?
much. So when you understand something, when we are highly bullish on something, and if that turns slightly negative, that
That's true.
pains a lot,
Little bit also, yeah.
right?
So one state goes
So
out of 5
seats
also
कम
you
आ
don't
जाए,
like
वो भी
it.
थोड़ा सा कंसर्न हो सकता है.
Fair
Okay.
point.
Second, अगेन बजट में कोई कैपिटल गेन्स इधर उधर की बात कर दे तो.
But this is going to be on account budget, right? Do you
Yeah.
think there can be still a
No, but
government
I'm
can
just-
get into a major?
I don't think so.
Being a devil's advocate, you are
Yes.
saying this can be a
Yeah.
dark horse.
Then कुछ FIs का कुछ बैरियर कर दे, right?
Okay.
And crude and currency, right? Because we always look at the intermarket. We
Correct.
know equity is good, but बाकी सब देखना पड़ेगा to get more conviction in the equity markets.
So if I had to narrate, you're saying okay, there can be some pressure because of global reaction
Right.
in commodity.
Right.
Any unforeseen event in
Geopolitical
India, geopolitical event
concerns,
globally.
right?
And
However, as of
the
now-
expectations are so high that little bit of not meeting expectation also can become
नहीं,
negative.
ऊपर जाएगा तो हमारे टैलेंट है, नीचे जाएगा तो हमारी गलती नहीं है.
Siddharth,
So politics, everybody has discussed. I think globally, we have seen, despite change in governments, change in the fear of the worst government, markets have done well, economies have done well. So it could be a short-term blip, but I think the long-term outlook on the economic growth continues to remain strong. And that is for the global economy.
global economy.
So we have seen the worst of the governments and we have seen the best of the governments. Market does what it does well, is tracking the economic growth, which would continue. So the only hurdle that I see, any risk which we talk about is already known by the market and is to some extent discounted by the market.
Right.
The biggest risk is the unknown, which we don't know. As some time back Kishore was highlighting, is the new variant of COVID can bring back the disruption.
That's fair.
We
Fair
don't
point.
know. So that could be a big risk. The known risk, the global economic growth, interest rates, inflation, because ना चाहते हुए भी हम आज एक ग्लोबली लिंक्ड इकोनॉमी है. अगर ग्रोथ कहीं ना कहीं स्लो डाउन होता है, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स कंटिन्यूज टू रिमेन हायर फॉर लॉन्गर, वो हमारे जो ग्रोथ स्टोरी को वापस थोड़ा कहीं ना कहीं अटका सकता है. एंड बैक होम जो अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ हम बात कर रहे हैं, आज हम अर्निंग्स अपग्रेड साइकिल में है. अगर वहाँ कहीं ना कहीं अगर निराशा देखने को मिले तो जो हमारा प्रेमाइस है कि जो 18 to 20% अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ अगर उसमें इम्पैक्ट आता है, चाहे वो कमोडिटी प्राइसेस की वजह से हो, चाहे वो डिमांड की वजह से हो, चाहे वो मानसून की वजह से हो, चाहे वो कोई भी गवर्नमेंट के चेंज इन पॉलिसीज की वजह से हो, फाइनली दोज थिंग्स कुड डिरेल द ग्रोथ एंड द अपसाइड इन द मार्केट.
Fair
Well,
point.
to add to that,
Sorry, you had to add, Navneet.
any unforeseen event which could trigger inflationary concerns once again, because the world has been battling higher inflation for the last 2 years,
Correct.
and rate cuts have been used as an ammunition. Rate hikes have been used, as an ammunition. So beyond this, rate hikes are kind of not.
As Kishore said, monetary impact have limited. We all use
the
that
world,
weapon.
the
in
world is
last
now bracing
2
for
years.
rate cuts, and any trigger in inflation,
trigger
you don't
can
have any
be negative.
ammunition to pull it down.
Fair
So
point.
that could be one outlier which we have to be very.
So
Kishore,
actually,
your
actually, exactly वही point है कि in the sense we are geared for interest rates going down. We are geared for that now. So there's a consensus interest rates will go down, right?
Correct.
And the only debate is how much and how fast.
How much and when?
How much and how fast, right? I seriously, as an economist, you would never like anything moving faster. Economists have to be slower. Right? Cycles have to be slower, larger cycles. If you say that in the next couple of years the interest rates will fall by 3-4%, then there has to be backed by something else,
Right.
right? Which has to be a mayhem in the markets, right? So at the same time, we are not expecting that to happen. So I see interest rates go slowly down, maybe at the space of 50 bips next year, another 100 bips next year. So by the end of 2025, you might be down 100-150 bips overall.
So you're hoping that if it goes slowly down,
That's
you
the
will
good
not
thing
have
to.
a
That's a good thing to
negative impact.
happen, right? If it has to go down faster, it will create volatility. I think the central banks doesn't push interest rates so fast because there is no need for doing that actually. If that need arises, then the markets are not going to do good. That's counterproductive anyway. You cannot have both,
Yeah.
right? That's something. And whatever this COVID, what is happening, I have been reading. Everyone has been reading these reports, tiny reports, small things. It might be, but it should not just rule out this possibility. Because if some of the countries takes this stance and say that okay, I will shut down, etc., because global supply chains are being integrated so much. Even if Singapore shut down, this will impact
It will have
a
a
lot of
impact on the
countries. Then the political decisions are taken seeing each other actually. One country shuts down, the other will
Other will
see
have to
that.
force to shut down.
Yeah,
As you
forced
said,
to shut down.
interrelated world, what we seen in
It's all
COVID
interrelated
happening,
world. And if the governments and we've been hearing that our government is also gearing up for that. We are ordering a lot of medications, etc., and preparing the beds, etc. That means there is something serious, right? We don't know. Again, I'm not saying something I know, but be prepared. We are at the top. Have a parachute, so that if needed, you can eject. I think that's the thing which we should be.
On that note, let me conclude. I think 2023 was happening here. We've seen a lot of global event, India event, asset class moving all in one direction. Broadly, a good year from investment and market perspective. And as my colleagues here, all good time, you have to be extra careful. And I think from investor perspective, the parachute which Kishore is talking about is your asset allocation, or what Siddharth spoke about, your allocation on sector or segment of the market, how much you should be in large cap, mid cap or small cap, or the view which we got from Navneet about commodity and currency, or Chandan telling us bet on India, don't look at anything outside India. On that note, it was a pleasure hosting you all. I think I had fun. I hope you guys enjoy listening to our conversation. Thank you very much for today.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.